Camp Camp. It's one of Rooster Teeth's shows that kinda just came out of nowhere. During Rooster Teeth's summer of animation, we were teased with all these different shows, from Ruby Chibi to Red vs. Blue to Rooster Teeth Animated Adventures. It was a time in which so much different content was being released in this short window, fans of all series could rejoice because there was something for everyone. Camp Camp was the only series in which no one really knew what to expect. The animation had an innocence to it as if it belonged on Cartoon Network, running alongside shows that look similar to it like Camp Lazlo. But then, we gotta listen to the music. That X Gonna Give It To You beat, remade by Achievement Hunter's very own Little J. It was clear that this series was not going to be family friendly, and boy is it not.
Mascot.
Dude, you fucking killed it!
Cameron Campbell's Camp Campbell is a place that fulfills all your camping needs. Any kind of camp that you want to go to, Camp Camp has. Everything from space camp to adventure camp to science camp. The series follows the miraculous misadventures of three main campers. You have Neil, Nikki, and Max. Neil, on the outside, appears to be a very timid individual. However, if a situation calls for it, he has no problem showing off his vulgar side.
Y'all are some ignorant fucking cunts.
Nikki, I believe, describes herself better than I could ever attempt. She is a self-proclaimed agent of chaos. And despite many of the other campers' reactions toward actually being at camp, Nikki very much enjoys herself and all the camp activities that are provided. Our final main camper is Max. He's a very cynical individual, to say the least. He doesn't particularly enjoy his time at Camp Campbell. In fact, it would appear his main goal is to escape the camp. The only thing that Max appears to hate more than the camp itself would be David, the overly cheery and hyperactive camp counselor. He really tries to put a little pep in everyone's step. Too bad nobody really wants that. You see her? That's Gwen, another camp counselor. She's not nearly as cheery and upbeat as David is. In fact, she's quite the polar opposite. While David is happy and enjoys the outdoors, Gwen is beaten down and enjoys a lot of trash TV. However, despite her being completely different to David, she does seem to care for the well-being of him, making for some very low-key nice moments. And there are still so many other campers with different personalities and tropes that get explored throughout each episode. You have Nerf, the bully type, Neris, the LARPing type, Preston, the theater kid, Dolph, the Hitler, and Space Kid, the, Space Kid.
I did this! Come after me!
Point is that there's a lot of different characters with plenty of unique personalities that you can find your own enjoyment out of. As for the story, Camp Camp doesn't particularly have one. There's no real overarching narrative. Things happen very episodically, which definitely works in its own favor. You don't have to watch one episode to understand what's happening 4 episodes down the line. However, if you do end up watching the episodes chronologically, by the time the entire series is ended, you get to see that the characters, or at least a very specific few characters, have grown by the end of the season. Now, that's not to say that they've changed their ways. More so, they've just grown, and you've come to learn more about them. Now, even though I said Camp Camp doesn't particularly have a story, that doesn't mean that there isn't one there. Each episode will tend to focus on a specific group of characters, allowing you to get a sense of who they are and what kind of motivates them to do what they do. All while they go about their crazy shenanigans. They further their friendships through the adventures they go on. It has its fair share of nice moments to keep you really invested into these characters. However, probably the biggest draw into the series is the comedy. Camp Camp excels in jokes that feel like are on the verge of just crossing the line. Then again, that may be very relative depending on who you are. If you're not a fan of underage sex jokes or Hitler and the Holocaust jokes, then the comedy may not be 100% for you. However, me personally, I believe that when it comes to comedy, everything is on limits to be made fun of. It's comedy, it's what it's supposed to do.
Don't come back. Come back when you're 18.
And it's so unlike any other Rooster Teeth production when it comes to the comedy that is presented. Ruby has comedy in it, but it's more centered towards a younger audience per se. Even when a character simply said the word bitch, it was a big shock to a large portion of the fanbase because Ruby as a show never swore. Red vs. Blue is a step up because it is a comedy show with a narrative, whereas Ruby is a narrative with some comedy. Red vs. Blue makes plenty of jokes, sex jokes, gender jokes, but most of the comedy comes from negging one another. However, there's this narrative wall that prevents them from making topical comedy that has happened in the real world. Camp is a comedy through and through, with little to no long-term story. Can that change? Absolutely. But as of season 1, it is solely a comedy with little long-term story. But because it was made to do whatever it wanted to do, they can make all the jokes they want. They can do whatever they want because they're not limited by a narrative, which is why the comedy works so well so consistently. Camp is simply a show where plot isn't particularly important. Character development isn't a main focus. The show simply seeks to entertain you with its crude and vulgar humor, and it does that with flying colors. It was such an out-of-the-blue show that came from nowhere, and even with all the jokes that could be considered offensive, it never failed to get a laugh out of me, or simply put a smile on my face. So what about you guys? Have you already seen Camp? If so, be sure to let me know in the comments below. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you waiting for? Go and watch it already. In the meantime, be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're interested in more content like this, and I'll see you in the next video.